Ever felt like you weren't alone, even when no one else was in the room? For Emma, a college student moving into her first apartment, that feeling became a terrifying reality. It wasn't the creaky floors or the distant city sounds that unsettled her. It was something much closer, something she saw every day. The apartment came furnished, a blessing for a student on a budget. But one piece stood out: a large, ornate antique mirror left behind by the previous tenant. It was beautiful, with a dark, carved wooden frame that seemed to absorb the light. On her very first night, exhausted from unpacking, Emma stood before it. As she raised her hand to brush a stray hair from her face, she noticed something odd. Her reflection. It seemed to lag, just a fraction of a second behind her own movement. She blinked, shook her head, and dismissed it. It was late. She was tired. It had to be a trick of the light, a figment of her overworked imagination. But that was only the beginning. The next evening, while brushing her teeth, it happened again. But this time, it was undeniable. Emma was just staring blankly at her own tired face when the person in the mirror smiled a wide, unnerving grin. Full second before the muscles in her own face even twitched. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She spat out her toothpaste, her hands trembling. This couldn't be real. She was hallucinating, stressed from the move, desperate for proof. For some logical explanation, she grabbed her phone. She hit record, her eyes locked on the screen, watching her own live image. She smiled, she frowned, she waved. On the phone, everything was perfectly normal. A perfect one-to-one reflection. But when she lowered the phone and looked directly into the mirror, the delay was back, a silent, mocking echo of her own existence. Over the next few days, a strange pattern emerged. The lights in the bathroom would flicker erratically, but only when she stood directly in front of the mirror. It was as if her very presence in front of the glass was disrupting the electricity, charging the air with a strange, unsettling energy. The subtle disturbances soon escalated into something far more sinister. The reflection was no longer just delayed. It was becoming independent. One night, while studying her face in the glass, trying to convince herself it was all in her head, she saw it. The eyes of her reflection blinked once, twice, while her own eyes remained wide open, unblinking. A cold dread washed over her. She stood frozen, a statue of flesh and bone, but the woman in the mirror wasn't. Slowly, a hand in the reflection lifted, waving at her with a chilling, casual familiarity. Emma didn't move a muscle. Her blood ran cold as she noticed something else, something that made the hair on her arms stand on end. The background behind her reflection, it wasn't her modern, slightly messy bathroom anymore. It was changing. The edges were darker. The walls looked like aged, peeling wallpaper from a bygone era. It was as if she wasn't looking into a reflection of her room, but through a window into another place. A much older, much darker place. Sleep became a luxury Emma could no longer afford. The face in the mirror haunted her waking moments and her nightmares. Who was this person wearing her face? Driven by a mix of terror and a desperate need for answers, she turned to the internet. She started with the apartment building's history, then searched for haunted mirrors, reflections moving on their own. The search results were a rabbit hole of urban legends and ghost stories, but one entry caught her eye. It was an old forum post discussing local legends. It mentioned a Victorian-era photographer named Elias Morwin, who was rumored to have practiced a dark art, believing he could trap human souls within reflective glass surfaces. His creations were said to be gateways, prisons for the spirits he captured. The post then mentioned a specific apartment number, her apartment number. A previous tenant had reportedly vanished without a trace decades ago, after telling friends her reflection had started talking to her. With trembling hands, Emma went back to the mirror. She ran her fingers along the ornate frame until they found a small, tarnished brass plate screwed into the bottom. She wiped away the grime. The inscription was faint, but clear. Property of Morwin Studio minus 1,889. That night, the sky broke open. A violent thunderstorm raged outside, casting the apartment in strobing flashes of light and shadow. Each thunderclap felt like a drumbeat counting down to something terrible. Drawn by an unseen force, Emma found herself standing before the mirror again. This time, there was no pretense of imitation. The reflection was moving freely, pacing back and forth within the confines of the glass, its movements frantic and agitated. While Emma stood perfectly still, paralyzed by fear, the figure in the mirror walked closer and closer, until its face was pressed against the glass from the other side. Its eyes, identical to hers but filled with a terrifying, ancient intelligence, stared into her soul. Then, it raised its hand and placed its palm flat against the inner surface of the mirror. An unspoken invitation, a challenge. An overwhelming, morbid curiosity eclipsed Emma's fear. What would happen? Hesitantly, she reached out her own hand. The air grew cold as her fingertips neared the glass. She expected to feel the cool, solid surface. Instead, her hand sank through it as if the mirror were nothing but a shimmering surface of water. A gasp escaped her lips as the cold, phantom hand on the other side grasped her own, its grip impossibly strong. The next morning, the storm had passed. Sunlight streamed into the quiet apartment. Emma's friend, Maya, let herself in with the spare key, calling her name. "Emma, you here? You missed our study session." The apartment was empty. Emma's phone and wallet were on the kitchen counter, her keys still in the door. It was like she had just vanished. Maya called her name again, her voice laced with growing concern. She walked into the bathroom, and there, in the center of the room, stood the antique mirror. It reflected the bathroom perfectly, with one addition. Itzowut, Emma, standing inside the room. She was smiling, a faint, vacant smile. Maya gasped, stumbling back. "Emma, what are you doing?" "You scared me." But Emma didn't respond. As Maya stared in horror, the reflection in the mirror, the one that was supposed to be her, slowly, deliberately, smiled. A full second before Maya's own lips even began to part in a scream. The cycle had begun again. Thank you so much for watching this chilling tale. If you enjoyed this story and want more spooky content, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for new videos every week. Let me know in the comments below what you would have done in Emma's situation. Until next time, stay safe and maybe avoid old mirrors.